welcome to do it then. I'll give you some time. The first thing that I want to start with, and people need to know, is if you have employees, you need to have state and federal posters. It's an $800 fine if you don't have them in South Carolina. The people most likely that are going to inspect that could be the state or the federal folks. In downtown Greenville, we have the Wage and Hour Division. That's a federal government agency. We don't have an EEOC agency in South Carolina. That's actually in Atlanta. But South Carolina has something called SHAC, and that's South Carolina Human Affairs Commission. And of course, we have labor licensing and regulation. And there's some things that they require. And then we have the DEW. If everybody doesn't know that term, it's the South Carolina Unemployment Office. They call that Department of Employment Workforce. So posters are a big deal. I mean, they cost us money. So I'm going to tell you where to go, where you can get them. You can go to the EEOC website, but it's easier if you just go to, and I'm going to give you this website, and I'm going to tell you this. If anybody has any questions during this, if they don't get an opportunity to ask me, you see my email right up there at steve@idealhr.net. You can email me after this class and ask me any question you want. It won't cost you a dime. Okay. So, but the place that you're going to get your posters, if you'll go to the South Carolina Labor Licensing and Regulation website, the website is llr.sc.gov. And when you get there, all you have to do is do the search and put in posters. And there are approximately 5 federal posters because, and I'm saying there's only 5 because the 6th one is family medical leave. You don't need that unless you have more than 50 employees. And you have about 4 to 5 state posters, okay? And you hang those up, they say, wherever employees congregate. Now, I have seen them on a bathroom door. I have seen them on they're posted on a poster. They've got them in their shop. I even worked with a brick mason once, and I put his posters in a notebook and sheet protectors. That way, if he ever got stopped or had an issue, he could just pull that notebook out. So,
can you repeat that address?
Yes, it's llr.sc for South Carolina .gov. llr.sc.gov. And you can print them out on just regular paper. They don't have to be in color. You can print them out black and white. And, they're just individuals, and just tack them up or tape them up. I'll tell you another secret is when you apply for your DEW, once you have employees and you have accumulated $1,500 worth of wages, you can apply for your DEW, your unemployment is basically your license. And they will send you a packet, and it will have posters in it. But I suggest just go to the Labor Licensing and Regulation website and just print them yourself. Okay. South Carolina usually follows the federal guidelines on just about everything. But the last time that South Carolina made a change was a poster in 2018, and it was the Maternity Act that, and I know nobody knows this, but every employee must sign as a new hire for this, this regulation. And even men, it's not just for women because men can have bonding leave. If you want to have several weeks of bonding leave, you can have it. You just have to ask your employer. Okay. So when you start your business, the first thing you need is, if you're going to get employees, you need an application. And you can go to Staples or anywhere like that. And the applications that are good to work with are the ones with the disclaimer on them. And the disclaimer that I'm talking about is the one that says, if you give me false information, it may be terms for dismissal, for termination. Because if someone gives you bad information and it's not good for your business, you have perfectly great grounds to terminate them. Okay, so be sure it's got that disclaimer on it. So once you have an application, you can't do anything with it until you have an employee. So the next thing you need is the job description. So without a job description, you cannot even write questions down to interview with. So you really want, and if anybody needs, I tried to do some sharing, but they didn't come out well. So if anybody wants an example of a job description, please email me and I'll send you a blank one. It'll be in a Word document. All you have to do is put your letterhead on it and you can use it for whatever you want. And you'll see on the job description that I'm going to send you is going to have the last part. The first part is going to be the job description itself, what the job is, and then the duties that you expect them to do. And once you fill that out, now you can create some questions for interviewing. Okay. You should ask the same questions for every candidate. It's easier to kind of compare the results if you're asking the same questions of everybody. But a job description does three things. Like I said, you can build interview questions with it. The employee, which is really important, the employees know what is expected of them. And if you ever do performance reviews, I always get my employees to tell me if anything's changed or if they don't understand something on there. And if something has changed, we're going to update it right then and there. Okay. So that's the second thing, is the employees will know what's expected of them. The third thing is if somebody gets injured, then it's always been great. I've always been able to send a job description to a doctor. And because that way the doctor knows what they do and if they can come back to work. Because the sooner you get that employee back to work, the less it's going to cost you on your work comp policy. And the happier they're going to be because they're going to be able to work. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right. So now we've gotten our application. Once we've interviewed for people, we want them to fill out an application. You know, don't go just by the resume. Have them fill out an application, even if they have a resume, because remember, it's got that disclaimer on there. So the next thing you want to do is you want to interview. Now, there's interviewing do's and don'ts, and I call that smart questions and stupid questions. You can ask any question that you want as it pertains to the job. And you really, if you'd like to have one of these detailed interview questions, please email me and I'll send it to you. It's actually a front and back. It gives you some good strategic questions to ask. It gives you some mental questions. It gives all sorts, all categories of questions that you can ask. But remember, you can only ask job-related questions. You cannot ask if somebody's been injured. You can't ask them what kind of car they drive or where they live or anything like that. You cannot ask them what high school they went to, because now you're going to know which side of town they lived on. Those are personal questions. And you want to write these questions down. And the reason I'm telling you that is because when people ad lib, they get into questions that they don't need to be asking. Okay. So what I tell all of my clients is to write down 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 questions that they want to ask everybody, and have it in front of you so you can have something to work from. Okay. It just keeps you on track. There are, and of course, I've told you some don't questions, but there's a good bit of those. So please, if you're interested in that, I want you to email me. Okay. So, it's really hard when you're interviewing somebody. You only get about an hour to talk with them. I know in some cases I've got clients that once they interview somebody, they might take them to lunch, or they might ask them to, go out to eat dinner. That way you can sit and talk to somebody. You want to kind of understand their personality. You want to know, you want to know a little bit more about them, and that gives you an opportunity to find out more. Because it's a hard job even for professionals to get all of the facts that you think you need, because you're going to be working with that person hopefully for a long time. I hate to say you're going to learn all about them if they've been working with you for a while. So a lot of times it's great to know what motivates people to come to work, and what their behaviors are, and what their skills are. I mean, because people can tell you. I know that we hired a nurse the other day for a client, and she actually said that we asked her if she was a manager, and she says, yeah, I am. And so we left it there. And then afterward, I said, well, can you tell me about your management skills? And it was just happenstance that I asked that. And she says, well, I just started managing, and I've only managed 2 people when I was, and I've only done it for like 2 months. And then after that candidate left, we talked about it and said, managing is a skill that you can learn. So, even though she didn't have a lot of management experience, they decided to hire her anyway. So it's good to have someone else that could ask questions with you if you need that help. But interviewing is a tough job, because whoever you hire, you're going to get them. Now, once you've hired somebody, there's a minimum amount of paperwork that you're required to have. This is going to save you money, I promise you. The first thing that you need is, and labor licensing and regulation requires this, and I can send you this form, or you can get it off of the LLR, Labor Licensing and Regulation website. It's called Terms of Employment. Terms of Employment is a form that tells an employee how much they get paid, where they get paid, when they get paid, and how they get paid, whether they're going to get a check or direct deposit. Okay. And if there's ever an issue with an employee, the first thing that LLR, that investigator, is going to ask you, and this is usually what happens. Usually we're friends until we're not. And when you terminate somebody, they're going to get upset, possibly. They're going to think that they're wrong. And they can go to the EEOC or Labor Licensing and Regulation, or they can go to the Wage and Hour Division. And once they go, those agents are required by law to come and talk with you. And they're going to, like I said, the LLR people in South Carolina, the first thing they're going to want to see is your terms of employment. Before they ask you one question, they're going to say, I need to see their terms of employment. So that one will save you some money. Of course, you need a W-4 on everybody. A W-4. And so as of 2020, as of last January, we have 2 W-4s.
Steve, do you
Yep.
mean, when you say terms of employment, would that be like a employee handbook?
No, it's not. It's just a one-sheeter, one form, terms of employment. It just says, you know, this is how much I make, and you write down what their salary is. When I'm going to get paid, is it weekly or biweekly? Where I'm going to get paid, and you would put direct deposit into your bank account, and how, and whether they get a check or direct deposit, and that's all it is. Of course, it's got their name and their information on it. Okay, and the employee has to sign that. They have to see, and they have to have acknowledgement that they've seen it. Okay. There were just so many employees that had questions about their employment, and they really didn't know what they made. So South Carolina, and it's been that way for, I know, for over 30 years, they require all employers to fill out that form on every employee. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So that's while we're there, employee handbooks, I'll tell you, people ask me, do I need an employee handbook? And I tell them, well, it depends. It depends on how big you are. I don't think every client needs a handbook. I think as you grow, you need specific guidelines for people. You need a policy maybe on holidays, you know, or how about vacation? And you're not required to give, just so you know, vacation and holidays are not regulated by the government, state or federal. Those are benefits. The only thing they regulate is if you offer them, there's a couple things you have to tell the employees. And I'll tell you what they are. If you give somebody vacation or paid time off and you terminate them and you don't tell them that either in a handbook or in a policy, if you don't tell that employee that if you are terminated, you will lose all of your unpaid benefits. If you don't tell them that, then the state and the federal government they're going to treat those like wages, and that you're going to owe it to them. Okay. So if you write a policy, you should say you get, 5 days a year. And if you've been here from say 1 to 3 years, but one of your statements needs to be, if you're terminated or if you quit, you will lose all unpaid benefits. Because if you don't put that down, they're going to treat it like wages, and they could go and try and get the money from you. Try and get the money. Since we're talking about money, I'm going to tell you this. And I like stories, but we had a client who helped an employee make a car payment. The young guy had a Mustang, is really neat. He needed to make his payment. It was $200. Well, the employee, before he paid his loan off, because he made an agreement with him that you had to pay, I don't know, it was like $50 a pay period until it was paid off. Well, the young man quit, and the client called me and said, hey, Steve, he says, I want you to take this money out of his last check. I want you to take all 150. I think he made one payment. I want you to take all $150 out of it. And I said, can't do it. I said, when you loaned him that money, you didn't put anything in writing. South Carolina has a law called a treble law, Treble, treble, which means 3 times. That's all you got to remember. So if he would have taken that money, that $150 out of his paycheck without a signature from that employee saying that he authorized him to take that money out of his last paycheck, he, in South Carolina, he can get 3 times what you took out plus court costs and attorney fees. Now, that $150, and I'll tell you this, every plaintiff's attorney, I don't know if we got any attorneys on here, but every plaintiff's attorney will most likely always go for a jury trial. And because they want you, they want that big bad employer to pay. So it's 3 times plus court costs and attorney fees. And the court costs and attorney fees are going to be a lot more than that $300 or that $450 that you could have gotten back. Any questions about that? Sorry I got off track, but I figured you needed to know that. So we were talking about forms. So you've got the terms of employment, you got the 2 W-4s. There's the state form as of January of 2020. South Carolina has their own special W-4 form, and the federal, the IRS, has a new form, and everybody hates it. It's not simple as writing how many exemptions you have. So you can find the federal W-4 on the IRS website. You can go on there, and you can get the South Carolina W-4 just anywhere. You can just Google that, South Carolina W-4, and that'll pop up. Okay. I'm sure you can go to the, and I didn't look, I'm sorry. You most likely go to South Carolina Withholding Department, and more than likely they've got that on their website. Okay. The next thing you need is an I-9. People don't know this, but in South Carolina, you must have an I-9, and it's got to be dated no later than the first day of work. You can do them before somebody starts, but legally, you cannot do them more than beyond the first day of work. I mean, you can do it, but you're going to get fined. The max fines on an I-9 for not having them is $3,000. So this class is going to save you $3,000 if you got employees. So they're not real easy to fill out, but on the website, let's see here. That would be Department of Homeland Security. You can go on there and they will give you instructions. And I'll be honest with you, if you want to email me and you need some help, I'll help you. Okay, we do a bunch of them. So
what exactly is an I-9 for?
The I-9 that's a good question. That's the immigration and naturalization form that allows someone to work in the United States. Everybody in South Carolina is required to, and everybody in the United States is required to do one of these. South Carolina requires not additionally that you have to do E-Verify. E-Verify is really the next step. It goes to the government and you submit that information to the government and it says, okay, Steve Ivester is applying for a job and he has filled out, has given me his documents. And it says, and I'll just give you some examples. When you have that I-9, the employee is required to give you, there's actually, with the instructions of the I-9, you're not supposed to tell people which documents they're supposed to give you. You're supposed to give them options. So we always tell people, here's the list of documents that you can give me. And so one of those documents is a passport. If somebody gives you a passport, you don't need any more documents. That is one document that will satisfy every need that you need on that form. So if they don't have what is it, their immigration paperwork, their passport, what most people give you is a driver's license, and you have to make sure it's not expired. And they give you a social security card. And of course, social security card doesn't have a expiration date on it. So if you don't have a passport, they need to give you two other documents. So let's say they give you the driver's license and social security card. You're also supposed to look at that form and look in the hologram that's on there, because one of the things you're going to certify on that I-9, it says, I have seen the documents and I have certified that I have seen them. And you sign an affidavit. So if you falsely give that information and you get an audit, and you can get one or two audits. You can get an audit from labor licensing and regulation, and I've seen an audit from the immigration people. That's a federal immigration, and they're right downtown in Greenville. It's amazing. I didn't know they had an office down there. But so you're supposed to look at that hologram, and in there, like on the Social Security card, it could be from Department of Homeland Security. It could be from Health and Human Services. So there are several agencies. It could be from the Social Security Administration. So there's at least 3 different agencies that can issue a social security card. And you have to put that information on a particular line on that I-9. Incorrect forms can be fined. So, like I said, if you have a question, I do not mind if you send me an email. And if we talk, I might even give you you can call Ideal HR, you can ask for me. I don't mind you doing that, but if you've got a specific question, I'll be glad to answer it. Okay? But that one is a very expensive mistake if they're not done right, or particularly if they're not done at all. Now, the E-Verify is something that's a little more difficult, and you actually have to go to Homeland Security and you have to apply for I think they might call it a license that you can report and do E-Verifies. You have to take a little test. Once you take the test, then they authorize you to do E-Verifies. Okay, any questions about that? They don't make it easy, do they? Now, the E-Verify, like I said, the I-9 cannot be any later than the first day of employment. The E-Verify can be no later than 3 days after you do the I-9 or after the first day of employment. So let's say they come to work on a Monday. I always count Monday as 1. Some people count Tuesday as 1. But we always do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday is the last day. But you could do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You just don't want to do it later than that. Okay? Any questions? All right. Well, so now you've got an employee, and here's something that gets people in trouble. They say, this thing is a pain in the rear. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to 1099 everybody. Well, that one is fraught with a lot of issues, because 1099 is an issue, because now the Department of Employment Workforce, the state unemployment people, they are the ones that most likely are going to see, if they do an audit. I was just telling Joe just earlier that I've got about 100 clients, and there's usually about 2 or 3 audits a year. I know last year there was only about 2 because of COVID, but usually it's 2 or 3 audits that my clients will get. And what happens is the DEW will send you a letter and say, we want to audit you, and we want to do it on February the 1st. And so you might be able to put them off because of an issue, but they're just like any government agency, they can't forget. They're not going to forget it. They're going to chase you down until you finally do this audit. And so what they do in the audit is they say, we want a copy of your financials. And if you don't have financials, they're going to want a copy of your tax returns. And they're going to want, they may want, I've seen them ask for your business checking account or, your bank statements. And if you're paying someone 1099, they'll be able to see it. And so let's talk about that. 1099 versus W-2. So let's, and I'll tell you this, the IRS has something called a long test and a short test. And I'm only going to give you the short test items. So 1099 versus W-2. If you have a 1099 person, there are things like, do you have a contract between the two of you? Normally, if you're paying a 1099 entity, they're not an employee, it's an entity, you generally need a contract. It's an agreement, and the agreement says you are responsible for your taxes, you are responsible for your workers' compensation, and you are going to be doing this job. So it has the basic information on it. And what you do is you don't pay a 1099 person by the hour. You have to pay them by the job. And the example that I give people is, let's say that somebody comes and they clean, let's say I got a problem with my toilet. And I call somebody up and I say, I got a problem with my toilet. What would you charge me? So the guy comes in and he looks at my toilet and he says, I'll take care of it. I'll fix it for you for $25. And you say, great. Well, he'll go out to his truck and maybe he's got a 50-cent part, and he comes in and he fixes it and you're just tickled to death because now your toilet's working and he just charged you $25. Well, what just happened was he had the ability to make money or lose money. What I mean by that is that if he went out there and got that part and it just wasn't what he thought it was and it didn't fix your toilet, he said, it really, I was wrong. It's really, instead of $25, it's going to cost you $75. And you're going to say, you're crazy. You only told me $25. Why should I give you $75? So you have to have the ability to make money or lose money. So that's one thing to think about. Usually you pay a 1099 person by the entity, by their federal EIN number. You don't use their social security number. You don't treat them like an employee. You pay their federal EIN number. And if they come to you and say, I don't have one of those, all I got is my social, it doesn't mean you can't, because there are some entities in South Carolina that you can set up. You can pay a partnership or a sole proprietor. If you're a sole proprietor in South Carolina, you use your social security number. So these 7 things that I'm going to tell you, doing one of them wrong doesn't necessarily get you in trouble. It's really the culmination of several of these that can get you in trouble. Okay. So I've given you 2 of them. Need a contract. They usually pay an federal EIN number. I've given you another one. They have the opportunity to make money or lose money. And you usually pay people by the job. I didn't tell him you got to come in here at 8 o'clock and you start working on my toilet, and then you can get off at 12 when you're finished. And I hope you're finished by 12. You do it by and I only charge you $25. You don't do it that way. So And then the other one is, like I said, you don't tell somebody, you don't tell a 1099 person or entity when to come to work and when to get off. Okay. So there's 7 items. Now the IRS, like I said, they have another one that's 20 items long. And they'll get into things like, did you buy their equipment? Did you pay for their pencils? Did you, did you pay for their tools? That kind of thing. So they'll get to the bottom of it sooner or later. Versus a W-2. It's really better to treat someone, if you have a W-2 person, and if you only need them part-time, just pay them part-time. Any questions? I've given you a lot of information there. Okay. So you have to be careful with 1099 people or entities versus a W-4. Any questions? Okay. So I've gone through a lot of stuff here. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I've told you? Y'all are really easy. I appreciate this.
Can somebody be a W-2 employee and then you pay them to do a side job that would normally not be part of their normal duties? Like they're a cook and you need a dishwasher. Can you pay them for the day to be a dishwasher?
I'm going to tell you depends. In most likelihood, no. If they're replacing someone, generally, no. Oh, and okay, now here's another one that the IRS will ask, and that's a good question. But does that person, is he a dishwasher for another company somewhere else? Most likely.
Maybe dishwasher wasn't a good criteria. Maybe I need a wall painted.
Painters are different, okay? But if you're a cook and then a dishwasher, it's kind of hard to separate those two. Not unless you're a professional dishwasher and you go from restaurant to restaurant and just wash dishes. You know what I mean? That's different than a painter. That's a good one, because I do have someone that comes in and paints some offices for me, and they are 1099. But I have an agreement with them. I have a contract. I don't tell her, it happens to be a lady, I don't tell her when to come to work and when not. I tell her I've got an office that needs to be painted, and when can you come do it?
But is she a regular employee all the time?
She's not my regular employee. Now, that's
So
a good
what
point.
I've witnessed is a guy who has a cook.
Yep.
When he runs out of food to cook, when business is slack, he'll occasionally have the guy do odd jobs and pay him no longer on a W-4 or he's no longer on the clock. Now he's paying him cash.
Yeah. Okay. Now he's probably looking for a way to get around it, but let's talk about this. Let's use your example. Let's say that he's a cook and things are slow. So he's paying him a W-2. So if he pays him a W-2, so at the end of the year, he's required by law to give the employee their W-2, and he's also required to send that to the IRS, a copy of it. Okay. Now, if I take that same person and I 1099 him, I'm also required to, if he makes over $600, I'm also required to 1099 him. Now, if the guy on the side is paying him, he's paying him off the clock and he's paying him on the side, he's doing that so he can avoid. If the IRS sees someone having a W-2 and a 1099 at the same company, that's a red flag. And if they catch it, they're going to question it. Okay. So if he's paying him off the, off the side, on the sides, what they call it, then he's just trying to avoid getting in trouble. I would say it's illegal. I would say it gets you in trouble. Now, if it's totally something different, let's say that the guy was also a painter. Let's say he's a cook, but he's also a painter and he paints for other people other than me, then I would think that would be explainable. You agree?
Okay, I get that.
That's a good question. Good conversation. Does anybody else have any good questions? Those are good. So I've got a couple things. If y'all think of something, think about them and ask me in a minute. But I've also got something, what makes a good supervisor, or 10 mistakes made by supervisors and managers. So the first thing that managers do wrong is they seize power and they attempt to hold on to it. So, and I'm not talking about an owner, because usually as an owner, you hire somebody because you have a job they need to do. But if you're a manager, managers attempt to, now that I'm a manager, I'm not going to let it go because I don't want anybody to learn what I'm doing, and I want to hold on to my job. Another thing that managers do wrong is they fail to solicit feedback. They need to talk to their employees and talk to them, how they're doing, how you're doing. Sometimes managers will delegate without authorizing it. They'll give them a job, but they don't, you've heard people say, well, I can drive this train, but I can't blow the whistle, which means that, I can do only certain things, but certain things the boss won't let me do. So do you want them to do something, and do you give them the full authority to get the job done? Another one is, thing that some managers do wrong is they reprimand their employees in the presence of other people. If you've got a problem with somebody, you really need to pull them aside and talk with them so nobody else can hear it. And another one is you don't supervise everybody the same way. Different employees learn, they either learn by hearing, they learn by seeing. And so people learn in different ways, and they want to be managed in a way that's good for them. So you really need to know your employees so you can manage them well. Don't always keep the interesting work for yourself. You need to share it. Let's see here. Siding with other team members. Be careful. You got a bunch of team members and they do it one way. You got to be careful siding with them. You better have a good reason why you're doing it. So I hope that's given you some ideas about managing people. I don't have anything else. I'd really like to take some questions. If anybody's got anything, I'd love to answer them. So you can email me any question you have, because you might have a situation you'd rather just talk about separately. I would love the opportunity. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you my cell phone. And if you want to call me, if you've got a specific question, I don't mind you calling me. When you call me, if I'm on the phone, please leave me a message. Tell me who you are, that you are on the class, and you got a question. My phone number is 864-918-3400. 918-3400, Steve Ivester. I do not mind if you call me and ask me a question. Okay. I see we've got a workshop evaluation. Love for you to fill it out. Let me know if there's some things that I could do better. If there's other things that you'd like to hear that I didn't touch on. So I really appreciate you coming tonight, and I wish you well. Joe, have you got anything?
Steve, thank you very much on behalf of SCORE. You're really a pro, and I'm sure everybody really appreciates everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve.
You're
It's great.
welcome. I enjoyed it. Y'all take care. Have a good night.